Remember those maps from school? The ones with huge swaths of the world splashed in red, proudly proclaiming the British Empire? It wasn't just about geography. It was about power, control, and a whole lot of messed up stuff. The British Empire wasn't just some tea-sipping social club. It was a force that reshaped the world, often with brutal consequences. From the Americas to Asia, Africa to Australia, the British Empire left its mark. And guess what? Those marks weren't pretty. We're talking about a legacy of systemic racism, economic exploitation, and political turmoil that continues to haunt us today. Think about it. India and Pakistan still grapple with the bloody legacy of partition. Ethiopia and Eritrea still dealing with the fallout of British meddling. Sudan and South Sudan, ditto. And let's not even get started on the Middle East, where British decisions continue to fuel conflicts. We're looking at you, Israel and Palestine, and Iran and Iraq. You guys too. The point is, this isn't ancient history, folks. This is the messy, complicated present, shaped by a past that refuses to stay buried. This isn't about some blame the British game. It's about understanding how we got here. It's about facing the uncomfortable truth that the world we live in today, with all its inequalities and injustices, is directly linked to the actions of empires past. And it's about finally having the long overdue conversation about what we're going to do about it. Let's talk about systemic racism, shall we? Because if colonialism was a schoolyard bully, systemic racism was its trusty sidekick. See, the British Empire didn't just conquer lands, it conquered minds. They built a system where being white wasn't just about skin color. It was about being better, smarter, and more deserving. This wasn't some unfortunate accident, folks. It was policy. It was baked into every layer of society, from education and law to economics and politics. They literally wrote the book on racism and used it to justify their rule. And here's the kicker, that book, it's still open. We're still dealing with the fallout of that toxic legacy. Think about the wealth gap, the lack of representation, the everyday discrimination that people of color face around the world. Those aren't isolated incidents, they're symptoms of a system built on inequality, a system designed to benefit some at the expense of others. And guess who gets the short end of the stick? Yeah, it ain't the descendants of the colonizers, but here's the thing about systems. They can be dismantled. It won't be easy, and it won't happen overnight, but it's possible. It starts with acknowledging the problem, confronting those uncomfortable truths, and committing to real systemic change. Because until we address the root causes of inequality, those scars on our collective soul will continue to fester. Now let's talk about reparations. It's a word that makes some people squirm in their seats. Why should we pay for the sins of our ancestors, they cry. Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because we're about to break it down. Reparations aren't about guilt-tripping. They're about righting historical wrongs. They're about acknowledging that generations of wealth and privilege in former colonial powers were built on the backs of exploited populations. It's about recognizing that the playing field isn't level and never has been. Think of it like this. If you steal someone's car, you don't get to keep it just because time has passed. You return it, right? And maybe you even throw in a little something extra for the inconvenience. Well, colonialism was a whole lot bigger than a stolen car, folks. It was centuries of theft, violence, and oppression. Reparations aren't just about money either. They're about justice, accountability, and a chance for healing. They're about investing in education, infrastructure, and healthcare in countries ravaged by colonial rule. They're about creating a future where everyone has a fair shot. It's time to stop pretending the past didn't happen. It's time to have those uncomfortable conversations about reparations, to listen to the voices of those who have been marginalized, and to finally start making things right. You know what's more fun than a game of Risk? Trying to draw borders on a map without creating a geopolitical nightmare. Spoiler alert, it's basically impossible, but hey, that didn't stop the British Empire from giving it a go. Armed with nothing but arrogance and a ruler, they carved up continents like a Thanksgiving turkey, dividing ethnicities, religions, and cultures with reckless abandon. The result? A whole lot of chaos, conflict, and resentment that continues to this day. Take a look at the Middle East, for example, that tangled web of borders. Yeah, that's not an accident, that's the legacy of the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a secret deal between Britain and France that carved up the Ottoman Empire after World War I, and guess what? those arbitrary lines they drew in the sand, they're still causing problems. They fueled the rise of extremism, exacerbated tensions between different groups, and made it nearly impossible to establish lasting peace. The legacy of these colonial borders isn't just a historical footnote, it's a ticking time bomb. It's a reminder that the decisions made by empires past continue to have very real consequences today. Section 5. India and Pakistan. A legacy of partition. All right, let's talk about India and Pakistan. Remember that whole divide and conquer strategy the British were so fond of? Well, they saved their most impressive, disastrous act for their grand finale. As the British Empire crumbled after World War II, they decided to split the Indian subcontinent into two states, India and Pakistan. The goal, to create a Hindu-majority India and a Muslim-majority Pakistan. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. The partition of India was one of the largest mass migrations in human history, with millions of Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs uprooted from their homes and forced to flee across newly drawn borders. And it wasn't exactly a picnic, folks. Violence erupted on a horrific scale. Estimates range from hundreds of thousands to 2 million people killed in the ensuing chaos. Families were torn apart, communities were shattered, and the scars of partition remain etched on the soul of the subcontinent to this day. The legacy of partition continues to cast a long shadow over India and Pakistan. The two countries have fought 3 wars since independence, and tensions remain high over the disputed territory of Kashmir. The partition was a tragedy on an unimaginable scale, and its consequences are still felt today. Section 6. Ethiopia and Eritrea, Seeds of Discord. Let's hop over to the Horn of Africa, shall we? Specifically to Ethiopia and Eritrea, 2 countries with a long and complicated history. And guess who played a starring role in that complicated history? You guessed it, the British Empire. After World War II, Eritrea, a former Italian colony, was placed under British administration. Now, you'd think that after defeating fascism, the British would be all about self-determination, right? Nope. Instead, they decided to hand over Eritrea to Ethiopia, ignoring the wishes of the Eritrean people. This decision, made in the name of geopolitical expediency, sowed the seeds of future conflict. Eritrea fought a long and bloody war for independence, finally achieving its goal in 1991, but the peace was short-lived. A border dispute erupted into a full-blown war in 1998, leaving tens of thousands dead and further poisoning relations between the two countries. The legacy of British colonialism, with its disregard for local identities and aspirations, continues to haunt the region. Section 7. Sudan and South Sudan, a nation divided. Next up, Sudan and South Sudan. Imagine a country roughly the size of Western Europe, home to a complex tapestry of ethnicities, religions and cultures. Now, imagine trying to govern that country with a one-size-fits-all approach that favours one group over all others. That, in a nutshell, was British rule in Sudan. The British, with their characteristic lack of subtlety, implemented policies that exacerbated existing divisions between the predominantly Arab and Muslim north and the largely Christian and animist south. They neglected development in the south, stoked tensions between different groups, and generally made a mess of things. The result? Decades of civil war, millions of lives lost, and a legacy of resentment that continues to plague both Sudan and South Sudan. South Sudan finally gained its independence in 2011, but the new nation has been plagued by conflict and instability. The British may have left Sudan in 1956, but their legacy of division and instability continues to cast a long shadow over the region. Section 8. Israel and Palestine, a conflict ignited. Now, let's talk about the big one, Israel and Palestine. This isn't just a regional conflict, it's a global powder keg. And guess who lit the fuse? You guessed it, the British Empire. In 1917, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, a document that promised to establish a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. Now here's the problem. Palestine was already home to a large Arab population. The British, with their trademark diplomacy, red lack thereof, managed to anger both sides. They promised things they couldn't deliver, fueled tensions between Jewish and Arab communities, and generally made a right mess of things. The result? A conflict that has raged for over a century, claiming countless lives and defying all attempts at a lasting resolution. The British may have left Palestine in 1948, but their legacy of broken promises and misguided policies continues to fuel the flames of conflict. Section 9, Echoes of Empire, a call to action. So here we are, folks, standing amidst the wreckage of empire. We've looked at the maps, we've heard the stories, and we've seen the consequences. The question is, what are we going to do about it? This isn't just about the past, it's about the present and the future. The legacies of colonialism are all around us, from systemic racism and economic inequality to political instability and ongoing conflicts. Ignoring them won't make them go away. It's time to face the truth about our shared history, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. It's time to listen to the voices of those who have been marginalized and silenced for far too long. It's time to acknowledge the need for justice, reparations, and a genuine commitment to righting historical wrongs. The road ahead won't be easy. There will be resistance, denial, and attempts to sweep the past under the rug, but we cannot afford to be silent. We must learn from the mistakes of the past and work towards a future where the legacies of empire no longer haunt us.